Okay. Assalamualaikum. Hi everybody. Today I'm going to talk about how to calculate G and how to calculate the ROE. So if you remember, when we talk about constant growth model of share valuation, PO is equal to D1 over K minus G. So this is PO is equal to D1 over K minus G is the formula for constant growth model of share valuation. Most of the time G is given to you. So if G is given to us, so there's no need for us to calculate G. However, sometimes G is not given. G is hidden and we have to find the value of G. So to calculate G or growth rate, G is the growth rate of dividend. We use this formula. G is equal to retention rate multiplied by ROE. G is equal to retention rate multiplied by ROE. ROE stands for return on equity. Okay, and the formula of retention rate is 1 minus dividend payout ratio and multiplied by ROE. Okay, let me explain to you what is a retention rate. Retention in Bahasa Melayu is kadar. Retention rate is in Malay is kadar yang disimpan. Let's say for example, your earnings per share, the earnings per share of the company is one ringgit. Let's say for example, earnings per share of a company is 1 ringgit. Okay, this is just an example. Let's say out of this 1 ringgit earnings per share, you pay 40 cents in the form of dividend. So dividend is equal to, let's say, 40 cents. Okay, out of 1 ringgit, if you pay dividend of 40 cents, it means that another 60 cents you retain as retained earning. So that 60 cents, it will become part of your retained earnings that can be used for next year's business. So if you want to calculate retention rate, so here if the profit is or the earnings per share is 1 ringgit and dividend per share is 40 cents, so you have a dividend payout ratio of 40 cents out of 1 ringgit. To get your answer in percentage, you multiply by 100, so you get 40%. So 40% dividend payout ratio. So if your dividend payout ratio is 40%, your retention rate is 60%. You retain 60%. So retention rate is 1 minus dividend payout ratio. So in this example, retention rate is equal to 1 minus 0.40, which is 0.60. So the retention rate is 60%. Okay, once you solve this retention rate, so this part of the equation is solved, and if you are lucky, return on equity is given. So if we are given the return on equity, we can easily solve for growth rate, or we can easily solve for G. Okay, another problems that might come across or might arise is when we have to calculate or we have to find out what is the value of ROE or return on equity. Okay, in a simple term, in a simple term, return on equity is equal to where is the okay, as we all know, return on equity, the formula for return on equity is equal to net income divided by total equity, or net income over common equity. However, there is another way of stating this return on equity by using a technique that is called a Pont technique. Pont technique. In our textbook, the 11th edition, our textbook, the textbook no longer call this technique as Pont technique, but if you read earlier edition of the textbook or from some other sources, this technique is called Pont technique, and the formula for Pont technique is on page 267 of the textbook, yeah, equation 8.8, in which ROE is equal to net income, or let me write this as NI, net income over sales multiplied by sales over total assets multiplied by total assets over total equity. So using this formula, let me show you so that you can get a closer look. ROE is equal to net income over sales multiplied by sales over total assets multiplied by total assets over total equity. Okay, if you cross out, see, if you cross out sales, cross out is sales, total assets cross out by total assets, you get net income over total equity. Net income over total equity. So similar with the formula that I have given on top of this whiteboard. Okay, this net income over sales, okay, a formula of net income over sales is also known as net profit margin. So net income over sales is net profit margin. Sales over total assets is known as total assets turnover. Total assets turnover, and total assets over total equity is called financial leverage, or sometimes it's called PE multiplier. Is it PE? Or it's called, yeah, I think it's a PE multiplier. But so this is a financial leverage. Okay, so let me repeat again. ROE is equal to net income over sales multiplied by sales over total assets multiplied by total assets over total equity. So net income over sales is also known as net profit margin. Sales over total assets is total assets turnover, and total assets over total equity is known as financial leverage. Okay, let us try take a look at question December 2019, yeah, question related to this topic. Okay, please refer to the answer scheme. The answer scheme that I have sent to you through WhatsApp, and I will try to explain to you how we come up with all these figures and the numbers. Okay, let us read the question first. So this question is for December 2019, question 3. Okay. December 2019, question 3. Question 3A. PE multiplier is the most widely used multiplier in valuation, as earning power is the primary driver of investment value. Doesn't matter, this sentence just doesn't carry any meaning. The following is the information on a technology company. Compute the PE multiplier. When the question asks you to compute the PE multiplier, it means that you have to calculate PE ratio. Remember, PE ratio is equal to market price over earnings. PE ratio is market price over earnings per share. Remember, when in the topic of share valuation, one of the technique of share valuation is PE multiplier technique. So that technique is related with this question. First, it is a very good habit for you to write down all the information given to you in the question, so that it's easy for you to refer back when you try to answer this question. Okay, the first information given to us is earnings per share of 50 cents. So the formula for earnings per share is net income. Look at the answer scheme that I have sent to you through the WhatsApp. So earnings per share is net income divided by number of shares outstanding. So we do not know yet what is the value of net income, but we are given the earnings per share of 50 cents. So and later on we are also told that the number of stocks or shares outstanding is 1 million. I use the terms shares and stocks interchangeably. We can use either shares or stocks, and it is the same thing. Okay, so later in the questions we are given the information that number of stocks outstanding is 1 million units. So from the earnings per share formula we can calculate net income. See on the right side there. Since the earnings per share is 50 cents, so we can easily calculate the net income by multiplying earnings per share with number of stocks outstanding or number of shares outstanding. So we'll have a net income of 500,000. Okay, next we are given the sales figure of 7 million, and next information is total assets turnover of 1.5 times. Okay, the formula for total assets turnover is sales over total assets. So sales over total assets is 1.5 times. Okay, next is number of stocks outstanding is 1 million, and dividend per share is 30 cents. Okay, the formula of dividend per share is total dividend payment divided by number of shares outstanding or number of stocks outstanding. So here the dividend per share is 30 cents. Okay, and then we have the information of equity multiplier. Okay, the term equity multiplier, we seldom use the term equity multiplier. Usually we use the term financial leverage to refer to this thing. That is why most of my students during the final exams last semester, they couldn't answer the question because they are not familiar with the term equity multiplier, because throughout the class we use the term financial leverage, so they do not know that equity multiplier also refers to financial leverage. So now I hope you will not repeat the mistakes of what my previous students did. So now when the question asks you, the question tell you equity multiplier, you automatically know that that is financial leverage, or according to this formula, that is total assets over common equity. Yeah, so that is equity multiplier. Okay, and then we have the expected return of 10%. Expected return, we use the symbol either K or I. Remember when we did a share valuation topic, so required rate of return is either K or I. Okay, depending on which technique that you use. Okay, so the question asks you to solve for price earnings ratio. As we know, the formula for price earnings ratio is there are two methods of calculating price earning ratio. So price earning ratio can be calculated using either market price over earnings per share, or price earning ratio is equal to dividend payout ratio over K minus G. So there are two ways of calculating price earning ratio. One is price earning ratio is market price over earnings per share, and the other one is price earning ratio is dividend payout ratio divided by K minus G. Okay, dividend payout ratio divided by K minus G, as we know, dividend payout ratio can also be calculated by using the formula of dividend per share over earnings per share, okay, and K minus G. So we can also rewrite dividend payout ratio as dividend per share over earnings per share. Okay, of course, the easier way to calculate the price earning ratio is by using the formula market price over earnings per share. The problem is for this question, we do not know, or we are not given the market price of the stock. So the first choice is out of question, because we cannot determine the market price of the stock. So we cannot solve market price earning ratio using the first formula. So we have no choice except to use the second formula, which is price earning ratio is equal to dividend payout ratio divided by K minus G. Okay, so now we need to solve all these four unknown variables: dividend per share, earnings per share, K is the required rate of return, and G is the dividends growth rate. Okay, out of these 1, 2, 3, 4 variables, one is already known. One is given to us, so we don't have to calculate anything because the required rate of return is 10%, right? 10%. So now, and dividend per share. So dividend per share we can is already given to us in the exam, and in the question. We are given the information that dividend per share is 30 cents. So you put dividend per share of 30 cents here. Look at the answer scheme that I give to you through WhatsApp. So dividend per share is 30 cents, and earnings per share is 50 cents. So dividend payout ratio is 30 cents over 50 cents, and you have dividend payout ratio of 60%, 0.6. Okay, K is 10%. So K is given as 10%, so you don't have to calculate because the required rate of return, okay, is already given. So now the problem is we need to calculate G, or dividends growth rate. Okay, we need to calculate the dividend growth rate using the formula that I mentioned just now. First, we need to calculate the retention rate. So look at the bottom part of the answer scheme. To calculate G, you need to calculate retention rate multiplied by ROE, or return on equity. To get the retention rate, it's easy, because once you know the dividend payout ratio of 40 cents, once you know dividend payout ratio of 60 cents, so you get a retention rate of 1 minus 0.6, so you get a retention rate of 40%. Okay, a bit more complicated is how to calculate ROE. So to calculate ROE, look at the lower part of the answer scheme. To calculate the ROE, you use the Pont technique that I mentioned just now. Pont technique. ROE is equal to net profit margin multiplied by total assets turnover multiplied by financial leverage. Okay, total assets turnover are given. It's given to us. Total assets turnover is 1.5 times. Okay, it's given in the question. And financial leverage is also given to us. Financial leverage is mentioned here as earning multiplier. No, sorry, equity multiplier. So financial leverage or equity multiplier is already given. So there's only one thing that we need to calculate, which is net profit margin. So net profit margin is equal to net profit or net income, which we calculate on top of the answer scheme. Net income of 500,000 divided by sales of 7 million. Net profit margin is net profit or net income over sales. So 500,000 divided by 7 million multiplied by total assets turnover of 1.5 multiplied by 2. 2 is the financial leverage or equity multiplier. So you get ROE of equal to 0.2143 or 21.43%. Once you know the ROE, you put this ROE of 0.2143% into this equation to find the value of growth rate, dividends growth rate, and you get the dividends growth rate of retention rate of 40% multiplied by 0.2143, you get growth rate of 0.0857. Okay, and you use this figure, just put it into the PE ratio formula, and you get the PE ratio of 41.96 times. The unit for price earning ratio is 41 is times. Unit for PE ratio is times. Okay, I hope this explanation satisfies you, and if you have any question, maybe we'll have to have a Facebook live later on. Until see you again. Bye bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.